All right, hello everyone, and a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a good day to everyone from all the parts of the world, wherever you are tuning in now or later. So, currently, we are live on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. So, in case you guys can hear me, see me, and all clear, then you can just go ahead and write anything in the chat section. Just write hi, boom, yo, or anything to depict your enthusiasm and to say that you guys are ready for today's session. Anything in the chat section would be good, and as soon as I receive anything, I'll get understanding that okay, you guys are here and you guys can hear me loud and clear. Well, this has been so this has been a very late. We have started with the session, and now it's time for the rocketry segment. I hope that you guys are waiting for the rocketry segment. So here we are, the rocketry segment, and interacting with the judges of the rocketry category. So today with us we have your judge, the rocketry category, an interesting person. So let me just pull him onto the stage and we shall begin with the session. All right, I can see a few comments in the chat. So, well, thank you so much for being here. And let me just quickly pull him onto the screen. And yep, there you are. So, today with us, we have Mr. Divyanshu Poddar, who is the CEO and Chief Educator of Rocketeers Research Institute, which is a space education organization dedicated to creating curriculum and educational experiences centered around rocketry. He's also the founder of Specific Impulse Technologies, which is India's first and only original equipment manufacturer for model and amateur rocketry system. And as you all know, that he would be your judge in the rocketry category. So thank you so much, Mr. Divyanshu, for agreeing for this live session, and I hope that you are doing good. The background it looks really real, so I hope that it is
Yeah, that's
not a
it's
virtual
it's a
background.
real background.
Okay, so it's a real
Yes.
background. It
Actually,
looks
I will
wonderful.
be on the move as well. So, like, the background is going to change. I will probably get into a car in another 10 minutes. Uh, so, right. But yeah, sure,
All
sure.
right.
I'm around, and it's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, Spaceonova and Soutik. Um, I hope this we get to have a fun session, and I'm really looking forward to the projects that students from this challenge build and come up with. Really excited about it. Thank you.
Yeah. So you'll be seeing all the projects and everything during the grand finale that is 26th to 28th of August 2022. So we'll be having the grand finale. You can definitely have a look through the projects and what the students have created. All right, guys. So we will be picking up questions from the chat section as well. So in case you guys have any questions, please do mention them in the chat, and we shall pick up questions one by one. We'll pick up all the questions, so feel free to mention them in the chat, and we shall pick up all of those questions. All right. So maybe before we start with all the technical questions and all the questions by the audience, maybe you can go forward with a very brief journey in the space sector. How was your journey in the space? How do you step into the space sector?
So yeah, space is something that I think every child gets excited about, and is something that everybody, it creates that sense of exploration and inspiration naturally for every kid, and so I was no different. And luckily, I got the chance to go into the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology to study engineering, and well, then that was sort of a done deal. It's a college that's directly under DOS. All students end up in the space industry, so yeah, that's how the journey sort of began. There is some interest, but it also is the opportunity to be in that campus at that time that really made things happen.
All right. So, well, thank you so much. We'll again loop back to this question at the end of the session, and we'll go in detail about what currently Rocketeers is doing and also
Yeah.
Space Impulse. We'll loop back to that question. But first, let me just pick up a few technical questions and go back to them as well. All right. So, all right. So, since this is all about rockets, so what is or what are the most important parameters that we should keep in mind while designing a rocket?
So, now when you say that you're designing a rocket, you first have to look at the kind of application that you are designing it for, whether whether you're designing a missile for defense, whether you're designing a propelled vehicle for some other sort of similar application, say for anti-riot police, or are you looking at something like a launch vehicle? Are you looking at a sounding rocket? All of these, or for that matter, a model or an amateur rocket. So all of these are different applications, and all of them have at a certain level different parameters that you need to look at. But if we would specifically talk about, say, space rockets and launch vehicles and stuff that we could launch that could take us to the moon and maybe Mars and even further beyond, those sort of things mostly have active control, and so what you're really designing for, at least when you look at Earth, you're designing to for superb aerodynamics such that you're able to escape Earth's atmosphere. And the second thing that you sort of look for is a very good thrust to weight ratio, because the Earth gravity is fairly strong. We live on a fairly dense planet, so it's Earth tends to be one of the more difficult planets to take off from when we compare other similar sized celestial bodies. Simply because not only are we dense as a planet, but we are further we have a dense atmosphere. So you have to look at both of those things. Um, Apart from that, some of the other things that you have to look at is manufacturability, cost, trying to use materials which are you obviously have to meet a certain performance parameters and certain safety parameters, but beyond that, you would want to figure out how to lower the cost of access to space. So if you have a choice of using an expensive material versus a cheaper material, you'd want to use a cheaper material if it fulfills your needs and requirements. So things like that. So these are some of the most important, I think, parameters. So you look at aerodynamics, good propulsion, and trying to lower cost, manufacturability. So these are the four sort of major segments when you start looking at the team which will work on a project as a whole.
All right, so guys, I think you know what all you should focus on when designing your solution, and these things would be kept in mind while creating your submissions as well. So, well, thank you so much for answering that, Mr. Divyanshu. All right, so we've seen, or we have now noted down all the four things which we must keep in mind while designing any rocket. So, how are actually rockets tested before we send them to space?
So there are various different types of testing regimes that are followed by different agencies. The more sort of traditional approach is the heritage path, which is what, say, NASA or ISRO follows, where what you do is that you test out each and every individual component for its requirements. So you will test out bolts for their strengths, you will test out sub assemblies for vibration, you will test out engines by firing them for propulsion. You will test out tanks by proof testing them for pressure. So you sort of take them to peak pressure. Uh, Over here, what starts happening is that you are sure that each and everything is working individually. So as you start combining them into sub assemblies, the sub assemblies then work. Then you combine them into bigger sub assemblies, and so on. So once your system gets scaled up completely, you are fairly sure that the system will work, because you have an understanding of the whole system on a individual component level. This tends to be a very exhaustive approach. You really test out for all kinds of scenarios, and in all kinds of possible ways, both destructive and non-destructive. So at times you're destroying components. So if you're, say, building out an optical system for a telescope, you're going to probably build two where one of them might go through destructive testing, and one of them might actually be flight hardware. Uh, that tends to be one approach. In the modern era, that approach is sort of losing its steam now, because it tends to be slow. It tends to be very, very cumbersome, and it tends to take a lot of time and money. Where the new approach is somewhat like how you test software. You simulate and you iterate. You simulate and you iterate. So you change things very, very rapidly, and so even by the time that you're getting to full assembly, you may not have tested each and every component individually, but you've simulated the system and tried to identify all the faults that come into the system and improve the system continuously. So what this leads to is that initially it leads to a lot of failures, uh, but then once the system starts getting successful, it's easily improvable. It's very the improvement that happens is very rapid, and you see a significant change in what you're able to achieve very rapidly after a few iteration cycles. So you see SpaceX doing this now, where they blow up rockets, they blow up their tanks, they blow up. They want to test something. They'll hang like tons of water from the cantilevers just to see whether it'll hold the things or not. So where you're really relying on simulations and continuous improvement based on engineering and understanding of engineering, as engineers and scientists, and then you sort of build out that hardware according to that and continuously iterate. um, so this is the more modern approach towards sort of trying to test out these systems.
All right. So maybe traditional, it was all, what do you say? I mean, everything was tested individually, and now we are
Yes.
doing it as a whole,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah. So
Um,
traditionally we did not simulate as much. Uh, we did not try and identify faults via simulation, for example, whereas now we do that. And even then we build out that system and we iterate. Even if that fault is happening, we push the system to see how to sort of make it better.
all right. Perfect. So, and yeah, and so that is how we test all those rockets before we actually go ahead and send them to space. Well, thank you so much for answering that question, Divyanshu. All right. So next, we have now seen what all we should keep in mind and how the testing is done before we send them to space. All right. So what are some of the recent innovations which has happened pertaining to launch vehicles in the past couple of years? Would you please Vilas, could you please describe a few recent innovations which has happened pertaining to launch vehicles?
So if we are talking, first of all, just being able to talk in the last couple of years, I think may not really be the way to go about it. uh,
All right.
I think that the timeline that we need to consider over here needs to be a little wider. Maybe let's try and look at it from the perspective of last 30 years.
Okay.
And uh, and and uh, if you look at the launch vehicles that were traditionally there, say 30 years ago, most of
Mhm.
these vehicles used at least two or three different types of propulsion at the same time. Most of them had at least two or three different stages, with each stage having its own specific impulse, its own characteristics, its own challenges, and paths, and so on. Um, and the flight process itself was the flight sequence itself was fairly intensive when it came to telemetry and communication with the vehicle, and looking at what could go wrong, simply because the number of critical events that were happening were quite high. So
Mhm.
each stage sort of stage separation is a critical event. Stage
Okay.
ignition is a critical event. Stage switch off is a critical event. Pico is a critical event. Miko is a critical event. So as you have more stages, all of these sort of increase in number, and so the points of time where your rocket can fail used to increase. So
Mhm.
over time, we've seen that the more modern launch vehicles usually have just two stages, where you have the first stage and you have the second stage, which is doing the orbital injection itself. Uh, so that is one of the things that started changing, say about 30 years ago, and we see sort of that happening with the more modern vehicles. Say even if you look at the Vulcan or the new Antares, it has boosters which are effectively a third stage. But even if you compare it with the old versions of sort of those vehicles, the number of stages have reduced. Also, we've tried to get to a situation where we are using similar propulsion methods for different stages. So even though you might have initial solid boosters, which are by their name solid, right, which are solid fuel, but mostly then you're trying that the rest of the stages or the rest of the rocket is using liquid propulsion and using probably the same fuel and oxidizer. The mixture may be different, the engine performance parameters may be different, the expansion cycles may be different in terms of the way the nozzle is designed, but the fuel tends to be the same. So that's one more thing that's been changing. And then one thing that I think everyone over here will already probably know about is the reusability part of it, the reusability part of the equation, where SpaceX started working on this say around 2007, 2008. They demonstrated that they can land a launch vehicle around 2012, I think 2012, 2013, the first landing. um, and then they have demonstrated very reliable, very high levels of reliability in being able to land their vehicles. And since then, I think they've landed more than 100 times. Um, so that has happened over the last 5 years, and then they have been reusing that solid booster. This is just the first stage that is getting reused. Um and someone might say that that's similar to the space shuttle. Space shuttle also got reused. So how is it a new innovation that we consider that has come up in the last 5-10 years? So the turnaround time for a launch for a space shuttle was, say, about 6 to 7 months on a minimum. That 6 to 7 months is when NASA really wants to make sure that they have to relaunch in 6-7 months. And that's why it's but on a more normal time scale, that timeline used to be around 1.5 years for relaunch.
Right.
um, Whereas for the SpaceX boosters, they have managed to create turnaround times which are less than 48 hours, and very rapidly they've been able to relaunch their boosters back into space. And also, none of the space shuttles, space shuttles, did say 10 to 15 flights in a lifespan of 20 years. Whereas today you see SpaceX launching boosters within the same year 13 times or 14 times. So in that sense, this is very much different from what earlier was, say reusability. And That's why I would not put them in the same you know sort of category. Apart from this, some of the new things coming to the final last 2 years, where we see a system like Starship getting built, which is not just partially reusable like the current SpaceX system, which is actually fully reusable.
Okay.
So the first stage and the second stage is reusable. So
All
the
right.
first stage and the second stage is reusable.
All right. Perfect. So mostly we are
So
seeing the reusability. I think, yeah, that is, I think, in the last couple of years. I mean, in the last 10 to 15 years, it's mostly on the reusability part which we are seeing the innovation is happening, right?
So it goes beyond reusability as well, because you see a lot of sort of other systems which are more efficient, more modern. Just to give you perspective on this, let's look at the Electron launch vehicle by Rocket Lab. So Electron is not a reusable vehicle as of now. They have managed to catch it using a helicopter, but they have not really been able to reuse it up till now. And if you were to compare it with a launch vehicle of similar size, which is say about 10-15 years old, so let us compare it with the SSLV. So SSLV is basically a solid rocket booster that was there on the PSLV. It's old tech. It's just being packaged as new stuff because there's a market opportunity. But it was tech that already existed 20 years ago. So if you compare it with a vehicle like that, a Rocket Lab Electron weighs approximately 1/7 of the SSLV. Like,
Uh,
the weight of the SSLV is 7 times. So that is the kind of difference that is going beyond reusability. This comes in because of lack of staging. This comes in because of lack of redundant telemetry that is required. This comes in because lack of redundant avionics that are required. This comes in because lack of structural elements, because we've improved our materials. And this comes in because similar engines, because of the same fuel. So all of those weight savings come in, and all of these innovations come in and create those weight savings, where your rocket is significantly more efficient at even at a low weight, it's launching a large payload.
all right. Okay, so that is a lot of things which has happened in in the past couple of years, and that actually there were a few questions pertaining to reusable launch vehicles. So I think you have answered that question as well along with this. All right, so I think there are a few questions from the audience. So let me just pick up a few questions from the audience which we have. Um, all right, so. Roger is asking that what are your views on SSTO, that is single stage to orbit launch vehicles, in the term of feasibility and reusability?
So I think the SSTOs are the holy grail of rocket scientists. I think it's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Where every rocket scientist at the end of the day is running towards trying to achieve that. Every science fiction vision or dream that we have that is interplanetary looks at systems which are effectively similar to SSTOs. I think the reason that SSTOs are so difficult is also because of the planet that we live on. I think I touched upon this earlier. We live on a dense planet with a dense atmosphere. It is really difficult to get out, right? And that is why SSTOs tend to be this more extremely difficult because you have to carry all of this redundant weight to orbit. You need rockets which are operating beyond 40-45% efficiency, whereas even the most modern rockets today operate at like what 7%, 6% efficiency in terms of their payload fraction. So it's definitely a stark jump from the tech that we have right now. But yeah, never say never.
All right. So I think you got your answer, Roger. Okay, so Ashik is asking that what are the some of the most popular simulating softwares used in rocketry?
So if we are talking about model and amateur rocketry, that would be RockSim and OpenRocket. If we are talking specifically about launch vehicles, I think ANSYS is one tool that almost everyone should have on their belt. Everyone should know ANSYS. Like you will need it. And apart from that, I think MATLAB is one more tool that really comes in very handy. So yeah, I would recommend these two.
All right, Sashik, I hope you've written down those name of the softwares and you'll get into those as well. All right, so Hari and Prashant, the two of your questions, we'll come back to it just in a few more minutes. We have that as well, so we'll come back to those questions in a few minutes. You don't need to worry. We'll come back to those questions. All right. Okay. All right. Perfect. Right. So now there is going to be a recent launch that is in August, and that is about Artemis One. So what is so special about Artemis One, which is to be launched in the month of August?
Yeah, we're going to the moon again. That's what's sort of special about it. Like like humans developed that tech, and then we sort of forgot about it. Like like we went to the moon last time in the 70s. And we've not been there since 50 years. And then you have a lot of logical reasons and arguments as to why it has not happened, varying from why do we need to do it to it's too expensive, etc., etc. But yeah, Artemis is the first sort of comprehensive effort to go back to the moon by any space agency, national, sovereign, or private, since almost the last 50 years. And the mission that's going to get launched is the first sort of test mission. It's not going to take people. It's going to just take cargo, I think. If it's successful, I think it's going to check out the Artemis missions are going to use this lunar orbit called linear halo no halo rectilinear lunar orbit. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Or basically those are the four words. The order may be wrong. Uh, so this orbit, this mission, I think, is going to launch a payload which is going to test this orbit out. I think Electron also did one mission like that a few days ago with one of the NASA payloads. So it's very interesting. It's very exciting. Also, it's coming at a time when we are seeing such huge advances in rocketry, where Artemis tends to be a very, very traditional system. It has a bunch of different stages. It has a bunch of different fuel systems. It has lots of redundant telemetry, and it's been developed using the traditional approach of testing and achieving heritage and so on. It's very interesting that we are seeing such advanced tech. But yeah, it's happening, and I'm very happy to see the mission happen, and I hope it's successful, and it inspires us all.
All right, so we are also looking forward to the launch in the month of August. So let's see what Artemis One, what wonders does this mission bring us? All right, so okay, so Prashant is asking another question. Before I come to Prashant's question, there's one more question, then I'll come back to Prashant's question. And yep, and that being is, all right, so Divyanshu, is coding necessary in rocketry?
So coding per se is not necessary for anything. It, it's something that will always help you. It's something that can improve your ability to understand engineering, and engineering system improves because if you code, basically you're writing the language of engineering. You're able to create things and systems straight from your mind to execution using this powerful tool that we have developed. So much like maths is the language of physics, I think coding is the language of engineering, and so knowing the language will obviously help. You can obviously communicate without the language as well, and you can probably do things and build things. And there's always so much more to do in terms of the ancillary roles that are needed to make anything possible. Uh, but yeah, I wouldn't say that it's necessary. I don't think that it's necessary for anything. But if you're interested in it, and you get a hang of it, and you think that you can be a good coder, it's definitely one amazing skill set to have, and it will help you a lot with your career.
Okay, so when you said it's not completely necessary, that was a direct attack on me. Nevertheless, no worries about that.
Why do you don't need to feel attacked? I say that it's a very
I,
good skill set, and
I,
it's very relevant, and it will help you a lot in your career.
yep, definitely, because I'm a coder, like complete coder, and so when you said not required, I was like,
So nothing needs to be necessary to be relevant, right?
oh, all right, so we can move forward. All right, so okay, and okay, so that brings me to actually Prashant's question, which Prashant was asking, and Prashant is asking that how can AI contribute to rocket design and mission-based objectives attainment?
So first of all, I don't have all the answers. First of all, I am not an expert on AI. I am not sure what are the kind of capabilities that machine learning systems will develop, and what are the kind of applications that will come out of it. Take anything that I say with like a massive grain of salt. And but yeah, I think that some of the things that it'll help is in terms of intuitive design, better structural systems using less mass. It'll help us with thrust vectoring, like that's already we are seeing with the reusable systems, the landing systems. Almost all the thrust vectoring, the TVC system for landing that's happening are machine learning based systems, which are controlling the rocket, and they are much faster, much more efficient than any other system that we have been able to develop. So obviously, any computer system or any system where we need to take split-second decisions, which are too fast for most humans to take, because rockets at the end of the day, they're operating at 17 Mach, 12 Mach, and speed ranges of that category. Things happen really fast, and calculations and decisions need to be done extremely rapidly, and that's where I think machine learning systems will excel.
All right, so I think Prashant, you have got your answer. Thank you so much for answering that question, the Vyanshu. All right. So now, okay, so we've covered about what is Artemis 1. All right. So, okay, ISRO is, okay, you've already touched up on this, but I'll just simply go ahead and ask this question again. So, ISRO is developing SSLV. How do you think it will impact the new space economy of India?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's a very good idea because see, you have a product that you've already developed, that is available to you to deploy and execute rapidly, and there is a market opportunity that is created around that product because of the way that market is moving, because of the way we are seeing now small satellite launch on demand starting to become very relevant not only for businesses but becoming very, very relevant for national security and rapid deployment of satellites in crisis situations. So launch on demand, small scale launch on demand is something which every sovereign will is going to be a capability which every sovereign is going to develop and keep on hand, and that is something that is going to happen. And so ISRO turning around its existing tech and making it accessible for that opportunity is a very good move. It reduces your R&D spend. It's a fairly low cost system that people already know how to build with a high level of reliability. Uh, so I think it's a very smart move.
All right. So thank you so much for answering that, Yanshu. And yes, SSLV are gaining popularity. So yep, let's see how well it goes as well. All right. So that brings me to another question, and that is, okay. So when we are going for interplanetary mission, how do we prepare ourselves for an interplanetary mission?
So there's a lot of different types of training that goes into it. It's not a one-day job. It'll take years, I think, for people to really start understanding the kind of physical, mental, psychological training you need to go through to be able to survive missions like that. These are going to be long missions in extreme isolation without any of natural surroundings that we as humans are so used to and rely on for our happiness. If I make you sit inside a room that doesn't have sunlight for 5 days, you'll already be clinically depressed. So those are the kind of things that we need to prepare for, and those are the kind of challenges that face us. Apart from the very extreme physical challenges that obviously come with it. So the physical training in terms of handling G forces, in terms of surviving on extremely rationed food, in terms of staying fit and keeping your body exercised and capable of very high dexterity and dexterity levels and reflexes. So all of those things are obviously a bare minimum, but beyond that, I think the psychological challenges are also going to be fairly intense, and humans will definitely need to prepare for those as well.
All right. Well, okay. Well, thank you for answering. And okay, it's a little scary, but yeah, those are important
Yeah,
to
it is
gain.
definitely. I think those are some of the things that we tend to ignore, or those are some of the things which tend to be a blind spot for most people when they think about space travel, right? uh, I'm sure that everybody understands that you have to be very fit, you have to exercise, you have to have a sort of regime that will your calcium levels get depleted by 85-90% in zero gravity conditions. So you have to prepare for those things, and stuff like that, obvious. But beyond that, like the psychological aspects are, I think, that people miss out on, especially the younger audience. They don't recognize that how the presence of a tree in your front yard or in your school is creating happiness in your life. And just that absence of that tree in that spaceship, where you'll be stuck for like more than a year, so those are the kind of challenges that I think we really don't understand well. And even the basic understanding that we have tends to be fairly limited in terms of how are we going to solve for it.
Okay. Well, okay. I don't know what much to say on this, but yeah, I mean, the people who go on interplanetary missions, I mean, yeah, it's just great how they're able to sustain and live all these months, years, and yeah, for getting answers to some questions which we are wondering. So well, yeah, whatever the astronauts are doing a great job. All right. So okay, perfect. So now we can proceed forward to the next question, and that is okay. So there has been some recent startups in India. So what are your views about some of the different startups such as Skyroot Aerospace and Agnikul?
So hello.
Yeah, Divyanshu. Oh. All right. So no worries, guys. I think Divyanshu just lost his internet connection. He shall be back with us shortly. Till then, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to write them down in the chat section, and I'll take up all of those questions one by one. No need to worry about that. And yeah, I think Divyanshu is back with us. So let me just quickly pull him onto the stage. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Divyanshu. I think you're now audible.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, Divyanshu. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Soutik. Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, I missed out on the last question.
No worries about that. So let me just go ahead and
Yeah.
repeat the question. So, what are your views about the different launch vehicle companies in India, such as Skyroot Aerospace and Agnikul?
So both of them have excellent teams, like both like Moin, Pavan, Bharat. They're all amazing, and Ravi Chandran. They're all amazing, beautiful people. Have a lot of fun interacting with them. They know what they're doing. They are very very passionate, and they have managed to build out teams and companies which are doing amazing work. Agnikul started off a little before Skyroot did, so they're obviously ahead in their development cycle than Skyroot. The Skyroot team also is one of the teams that came out of ISRO, so they carry a lot of ISRO legacy or ISRO heritage sort of development and mindset in within the program. So it would be interesting to see how they compete in a more modern launch vehicle market, because I feel that they are still sort of maybe not as pioneering as Agnikul is being, to be honest. And but then you never know, right? Things like this take time. They take a lot of effort, and they are definitely doing amazing work. Uh, Both of their engines have been tested, their fuel tanks have been proof tested. They have performed well beyond the expected parameters, actually, for both the teams. Um, and and, and uh, so so that's beautiful and interesting to see. I hope we get to see a launch soon. So with in space getting set up, I think both of these companies are already in discussion with InSpace and then through them with NSIL to see how they can set up launch pads or launch facilities, or how maybe they can access ISRO launch facilities to do their first maiden launches. And I think we should see them in the next 18 to 24 months, and I think that would be quite exciting. And I personally feel, at least, like, I feel both of them have a fairly good chance of getting to orbit, and if they manage to do that, I think then beyond that, space is the limit, right? So
All right. So we're looking forward to them, and yep, they are doing a great job. So that is a wonderful thing what all these companies are doing. Um, all right. So all right. So now we can maybe move forward. All right. So we can now maybe move forward to the another segment, and that is a little or to know more about you and what you guys are currently doing. So you guys have currently revolutionized the model rocketry in India. So how did you come up with Rocketeers India, and what were some of the challenges which you faced along the way?
so first of all, I don't think the revolution has happened yet.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure it's yet to come. I hope it's yet to come. Uh, right, and secondly, I think I started off rocketry. So I was in second year in college at that time. A friend of mine showed me a video from the US. It was a TED talk that was talking about model rocketry. It's by Steve Jurvetson. He's also one of the first investors in SpaceX. He did a TED talk. It's a 3 minute TED talk. It's called "The Joy of Rockets."
Okay.
And it was a beautiful TED talk, and very joyful, and it really inspired me a lot to want to build that kind of a rocket on my own. And that's how me and a couple of more of my friends from IST, we started doing this project where we started building model rockets, and we built quite a lot of them over the next 2 3 years in college. And up till that point of time, it was just a college project that four engineering students are just trying to sort of build a rocket and launch it and stuff like that. There was no company around it, or there was no real vision around it. But then, as things evolved, I came to realize that this is an activity that not just us four, but a lot of other students would be interested in, and would love to pursue. And it's very exciting. It helps a lot in understanding physics and math. It can come in as a very handy teaching tool. It can have a lot of applications in STEM and so on. But it does not exist in India. It absolutely is non-existent, and I felt that the cost of making a model rocket at that point of time for an average person was anywhere between 9 to 15,000 rupees for a small rocket. This is like a tiny rocket going to 300 feet, weighing like 50 grams, and even then you're spending like this much money if you want to build it safely and launch it safely. And we felt that this is just cost prohibitive. It will if this remains at this cost, it will never become accessible to the rural masses of the Indian population. And then there are people who are doing jugaad, and once you start doing jugaad, the safety issues start cropping in, and students may face problems with safety. I personally know of, or I personally have friends who have burned down their parents' garages, who have burned their hands, who have blown stuff. I blew up.
Okay, so Divyanshu did blew up something, but currently he did blew up his internet. So let's wait for his internet to be back. And yeah, I think I've received two more questions from Brenan. Yep, I've received your question, and Prashant, I also received your question. So it seems that Divyanshu has fixed his internet back again. So I'm just again pulling back onto the screen, and yep, Divyanshu, you're now back again.
Yeah, I do a bunch of stuff during.
Yeah, all right. So I think Divyansh just lost his internet again. So no worries about that. Okay. So I was saying, yep, Brinan, I have received your question. So I'll go ahead and ask him about that as well. And Prashant, even I've received your question again. So again, let me just pull
I
Divyanshu back onto the screen. Yeah,
So I'm really
Divyanshu.
sorry about this, Soutik. Actually, I'm using my phone and I was getting a call repeatedly and it just disconnected.
Yeah, and yeah, no worries about that. So you were
So,
talking about you did blew up
yeah,
something.
so I blew a bunch of stuff during college, and so those are the things that helped me realize that this is a accessibility, reliability, and a safety issue. So that's where the idea came that we need to build a company which can make rocketry safe, reliable, and accessible. And by accessible, I mean low cost. So for the Indian masses, and only when that happens, will we be able to really scale up the Indian rocketry ecosystem. And that's what we've been doing. We've had more than 150,000 launches without a single major accident. Our rockets are reliable. If you have them, it will always fly. And we sell a model rocket today for 1,200 rupees against that cost of 9 to 15,000 5 years ago when we started. So, and
Right.
this is my selling price at 1,200. And I'm going to bring this down further. So,
Okay, so Divyansh, sorry to interrupt, but I think your voice is a little muffled. So when you're saying numbers like 9,000 and 15,000, it's kind of audible. So I think it's just very muffled. I think there are some internet issues on your end, I believe,
okay.
since your voice is not
So,
really
can you
clear.
hear me better now?
Yeah, I still it looks as if it's an alien speaking, or that is the kind of tone which I am getting. But I think I can make out some of the words as well. Yeah. So Divyansh, could you just repeat the last part which you said about? So you guys
So,
decided to.
so we decided the problem is basically a safety, reliability, and accessibility issue. So we have been trying to make model rockets safe, reliable, and accessible. And we have had more than 150,000, so 1.5 lakh launches without any major accident. We have our rockets have become extremely reliable. So if you have one, it will always fly. And the third thing is that we brought down the cost. So when we started, the cost of a basic model rocket was anywhere between 9 to 15,000, whereas we now sell one model rocket for just 1,200 rupees. And as we go along, we plan to bring this cost down further. So the idea, the hello, can you
All
hear
right.
me?
So now it's just not audible, but I think I got it that it was from 9 to 12,000, and you dropped it down to just 2,000. I think that is what I could hear. 2,000 or 1500. That is something which I can hear, and I think so that was a great reduction in the cost which you guys have done.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
So
It's
yeah,
just that it's not very clear. Yep.
yeah, I'm sorry about that topic. So
Yeah.
let me just repeat the last line. So the cost now we are selling at is 1200, and we plan to bring it down further. So that's the idea, and that was the what was the vision of Rocketeers.
All right. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So thank you so much for answering that question. And yeah, we have seen well, Rocketeers is currently doing great. And the cost reduction by keeping in mind the safety and rest of things, it's just great what you guys are doing. And yeah, wonderful. And people are using modern rockets and flying them. So yeah, that's again something very great. All right. So well, we have a few questions from the chat, and we'll pick up them, and I think we can then wrap up with the session today. All right. So Prashant is asking that, do you think the private launch facilities in India is a good idea?
Yes, yes, I think that's the problem. Like, do you need me to elaborate?
Hello, Divyanshu, can you hear me?
Hello, I said, could you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I said yes, it's definitely a good idea.
Okay. All right. Okay. Perfect. I Okay, so Divyansh, before we wrap up with today's session, let me ask you a few general questions, and that would be, what is some advice which you have for the participants of the Space Science Challenge 2022?
So don't give up. Let's just keep going.
All right. So very short and crisp and sweet. So don't give up. And one more question, and that would be that any book or movie recommendations which you have, which is very inspiring for you.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, Divyanshu. So any book or movie recommendation which is very inspiring?
Sure, Gautam.
Yeah. Yeah, Divyanshu. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um. All right. I think Divyanshu, there has been, or there are a lot of internet issues. Your voice is not audible. Uh, Audible correctly. So I think we can maybe just go ahead and yeah, wrap up with today's session. So before we wrap up with today's session, do you have anything, or do you want anything else to convey to our audience? All right. Yep, I think. Okay,
hello.
1 second. Let me see. Yeah,
Yeah.
Divyanshu, can you hear me?
So
Yeah,
yes, yes.
this is perfect. This is
In
perfect.
between,
Perfect.
like I was there, but I lost you. So yeah,
Yeah.
great. The
So,
book that inspires me the most is
ah,
so I would say the Hitchhiker's
the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
yeah, that's correct.
All right.
That's correct.
And any movie recommendations from your end?
Uh, so there are so many of them. Recent, Recently, I would say the Expanse, the series has been quite brilliant. The Martian is also lovely. It's a very good movie.
Ah, all right. So, okay, those are some of the good recommendations. Thank you so much for that. And yep, I believe that we are done with our questions. So, in case, guys, in case I've missed any of your questions, no need to worry, no need to panic, since we have uh, since we have more guest lecturers coming up, and you can maybe ask your questions in there as well. Okay, so in case I've missed any of your questions, no worries. We have other sessions lined up for you guys, and you will receive all of those notifications on your email as well. And stay connected to our LinkedIn. We shall be posting new live sessions. You'll see in the form of events, and you can go ahead for that. And if not only there, we are also streaming it completely on YouTube as well. So yep, over there also we would be having all our sessions. So yep. Yeah. So we'll be streaming all of the sessions on YouTube as well. So feel free to stay connected to our YouTube and LinkedIn. We have a number of sessions lined up, and you guys can go ahead and ask the same as well. Okay, perfect. And I think that would be it for today. We have the next session with Mr. Anirudh. So the more details regarding that will be shared with you shortly. So again, subscribe to our LinkedIn channel and on YouTube, since we are going to go live on both of those places. All right, guys. Till then, thank you so much for being a lovely audience. Thank you so much for ending this meet at whichever time zone you are from. So have a great day, great night, great evening, great morning from whichever time zone you are from. And we hope that we will see you live again very soon. And yeah, I think that is bye from Divyanshu as well. Hey, yeah, Divyanshu, so thank you so
So,
much
so you can hear
for
me, I hope. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I'm really sorry for the connectivity issues in the last 10, 15 minutes. And I hope you guys had a good session and got to learn something new. I had a lot of fun. Thank you, Spaceonova, and thank you, Sautik.
yeah, yeah, well, thank you so much for taking out time and uh, doing this live session with us, considering all your travelings and rest of the things. Well, thank you so much for that.
Great. Bye, guys.
All right, all right then. Bye bye, everyone. Take care. See you guys very soon.